Good evening. This is not a drill. This is not a policy simulation. This is not a theoretical exercise in what could happen if things went wrong. Things have gone wrong. Things have gone catastrophically, historically wrong. We are currently in the fourth day of a conflict that has ceased to be a skirmish or an exchange and has now entered the realm of active war gravity that we have not seen in our lifetimes. Tonight, the maps in the Pentagon are being redrawn in real time. The reason this matters right now, the reason you need to put down whatever you're doing and look at this, is because we have just received confirmation of a strategic miscalculation of the highest order. At approximately 04:30 local time in Doha, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps launched a saturation strike consisting of medium-range ballistic missiles and swarms of loitering munitions. Their target, Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Udeid is not just another outpost. It is the beating heart of U.S. Central Command. It is the hub of American air power in the Middle East. And tonight, for the first time in the history of that facility, the shield didn't hold. We are reporting tonight, and this is being confirmed by multiple sources within the Department of Defense, that the United States has lost over $2 billion in military hardware in a single afternoon. Specifically, we are talking about the total destruction of the AN/FPS-132 Block 5 early warning radar. This is a strategic level system. This is the eye in the sky that sees the missiles before they even leave the silos. It is gone. Along with it, we have reports of multiple fifth-generation airframes, including F-35 variants, caught on the tarmac during a fueling window. The escalation ladder has been kicked over. We are now in a free fall. Iran has signaled that they are no longer aiming for proxy targets. They are aiming for the sensor layer of the United States global defense architecture. This is a deliberate attempt to blind the American military in the region. Watch this space, because this space is on fire. Before we go any further, I need you to understand the scale of this. This isn't just a loss of equipment. This is a retaliatory calculus that has shifted from eye for an eye to we will blind you so you cannot see the next blow. If you are watching this, you need to share this stream, you need to hit that notification bell, and you need to stay with us, because the rules of engagement just changed while we were on the air. We are tracking a proverbial point of no return. Wait for it, because the information we are getting about the response from the White House is coming in as I speak. We are looking at an absolute diplomatic collapse. The red line wasn't just crossed, it was obliterated. Stay right here. We have the paper trail, we have the data, we have the timeline of how we got here. The paper trail for this disaster doesn't just exist. It is currently screaming off the fax machines and secure terminals in every capital from Brussels to Beijing. We have obtained, and this is verified, the leaked National Intelligence Daily from the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency. And what it shows is a catastrophic disconnect between what the administration told the public and what was happening on the ground in Qatar. For 3 days, we were told the epic Fury strikes had decimated the IRGC's ability to coordinate a response. We were told the regime change objectives were being met with surgical precision. But the paper trail tells a different story. In an emergency session of the UN Security Council that just concluded in New York, a session requested by France and backed by a visibly shaken Colombia, the evidence was laid bare. U.S. Ambassador Mike Waltz stood before the world to argue that these were dismantling strikes under Article 51 of the UN Charter. But while he was speaking, reports were filtering in of an absolute diplomatic collapse. Russia's envoy, Vasily Nebenzia, didn't just condemn the strike. He called it the final shredding of the international order. China's ambassador Fu Kong used the word brazen and warned of uncontrollable consequences. The reason this matters right now is because the intelligence briefings indicate that the Iranian response, dubbed Operation True Promise He, was not a reflexive lashing out. It was a pre-planned, tiered escalation. We have seen reports of intercepted communications between Tehran's Interim Leadership Council, the group currently holding the reins after the assassination of the supreme leader in the opening hours of this war, and their regional coordinators. They weren't just guessing where our blind spots were. They targeted the $1.1 billion AN/FPS-132 radar at Al Udeid with a precision that suggests they knew exactly when the maintenance cycles were. Yeah, wait for it, because it gets worse. We are also tracking a series of strikes on U.S. diplomatic missions. The U.S. Embassy in Riyadh hit. The CIA station inside the compound hit. The consulate in Dubai damaged. These are not peripheral targets. This is a systematic attempt to dismantle the American presence in the Middle East, brick by expensive strategic brick. This is the strategic miscalculation we warned about. The retaliatory calculus in Tehran has clearly shifted to a scorched earth policy. The intelligence community is reportedly at a loss to explain how the THAAD system in the UAE, a $500 million asset, failed to intercept the loitering munitions that took out its own radar. Watch this space, because the paper trail is turning into a rap sheet for a global catastrophe. The timeline we are reconstructing tonight, the tick-tock of how the most defended airspace in the world became a shooting gallery, is chilling. We have spoken to sources close to the Situation Room, and the picture they paint is one of a strategic fog that lasted for 48 agonizing minutes. At 04:12 local time, the first indications of a massive launch from Iran's western provinces hit the screens at the Combined Air Operations Center. But here is the wait for it moment. The alerts didn't come from our high-end satellites first. They came from tactical data links that were already failing. By 04:20, the situational awareness displays at Al Udeid began to flicker. We are now learning that this was the result of a coordinated cyberkinetic strike. While the missiles were in the air, a sophisticated digital blinding campaign was launched against the Patriot and THAAD uplink frequencies. In Washington, it was just after 8 p.m. The president was reportedly in the residence when the flash message arrived. The tick-tock shows that by 04:30, the first Iranian Sajil-2 ballistic missile had cleared the Qatari coastline. The reason this matters right now is the sheer failure of the escalation ladder theory. The Pentagon believed our presence at Al Udeid was a deterrent. Instead, it became a $2 billion target. We have confirmed that at 04:32, the AN/FPS-132 early warning radar, the $1.1 billion crown jewel of our regional defense, took a direct hit. The radome didn't just break, it vanished. This left the entire base's air defenses in autonomous mode, essentially forcing them to fight blind. Then came the friendly fire catastrophe. Just as U.S. F-15E Strike Eagles were scrambling from Ali al-Salam in Kuwait to provide top cover, Kuwaiti air defense batteries, operating on hair trigger alert and disconnected from the blinded U.S. command net, mistook them for incoming Iranian Su-24s. 3 F-15Es, $282 million worth of air superiority, were blown out of the sky by our own allies. The pilots punched out, thank God, but the hardware is at the bottom of the Gulf. Inside the Situation Room, the mood was described as incredulous. One official said, "We were watching the dismantling of 30 years of security architecture in 30 minutes. By 04:55, the IRGC had confirmed hits on the SATCOM terminals at the 5th Fleet HQ in Bahrain and the THAAD radar in the UAE. Washington knew we were losing the sensor war before the first casualty report even hit the desk. This was not a random attack. This was a surgical amputation of American regional vision. Watch this space, because the tick-tock of the counterstrike is already beginning, and the retaliatory calculus is moving toward the unthinkable. The parallels we are seeing tonight are not just historical, they are haunting. We are looking at a moment that carries the same act of war gravity as the 1968 Tet Offensive, mixed with the sheer technological shock of Pearl Harbor. But this isn't 1941, and the weapons aren't torpedoes. They are hypersonic boosted glide vehicles hitting the very sensor layer that was supposed to make us invulnerable. The reason this matters right now is that the Council on Foreign Relations, the graybeards of the foreign policy establishment, are tonight using words like unprecedented and existential. One senior analyst told us just an hour ago, we have moved past the proxy war phase. We are now in a direct, high-intensity kinetic conflict with a state actor that has decided the cost of total war is lower than the cost of continued containment. And let's talk about the retaliatory calculus in the Oval Office, because as we speak, the War Powers Act is being invoked not as a formality, but as a desperate legal shield. Congressional leadership was briefed at 21 hour Eastern on the nuclear calculus. We are reporting that for the first time since the 1973 Yom Kippur War, the DEFCON level for CENTCOM assets has been quietly notched up. Why? Because if the sensor layer is gone, if we can't see the missiles leaving the silos in Tabriz or Isfahan, the only doctrine left in the manual is launch on warning. We are talking about a hair trigger environment where a flock of birds or a solar flare could trigger a global catastrophe. The proxy war spillover is already happening. Hezbollah has begun saturation softening of the northern border of Israel. The Houthis have declared the Red Sea a total exclusion zone. This is the absolute diplomatic collapse we feared. The rules of engagement have been thrown out the window. We are hearing reports that the hotline between Washington and Moscow, yes, that hotline is currently active because the Russians are moving assets into the Mediterranean to monitor the situation. This is how world wars start, not with a bang, but with a series of strategic miscalculations that stack up until the whole house of cards comes down. Wait for it, because the next move isn't coming from a diplomat, it's coming from a carrier strike group. We are watching the USS Abraham Lincoln move into strike posture despite having its radar data link compromised. This is a blind giant swinging a massive sword in a crowded room. The escalation ladder has no more rungs. We are at the top. We are looking over the edge. Watch this space, because this space is on fire, and the fire is spreading to the global economy, the energy markets, and the very fabric of international security. We will be here all night. We are not turning away. You shouldn't either.